Welcome to the In Tune audio podcast. I am your host, Glenn Hall, and today we'll be exploring Appalachian mountain music, or reviving an old sound, so to say. And my guest today is Geoff White, the Director of Highlander Student Media at Radford University. Thank you for having me, Geoff.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to talk about basically exploring all Appalachian music in of itself, the environment, the people as well too, and even just the music in general as well. So about this music, where did it come from? What made this Appalachian music the way it is?
Well, I've always maintained that Appalachian music has a very strong background as far as the British Isles go. You can hear it in the Appalachian music. There's a strong influence in a lot of Appalachian fiddling. If you listen to Jake Crack, who is a phenomenal fiddler, and I was listening to an Irish ballad sung by a fellow named Joe Heaney, and I could immediately hear how that was the background for the music you hear sung by Elizabeth Laprelle and Ashley Monroe, what you would consider very distinctly Appalachian singing. It comes from these Irish and Scottish and British influences. So that's where Appalachian music comes from.
And it kind of came from the starting countries, and they came over to the colonies as well too, with the slaves.
Exactly, and I think what happened is this music came over, and as people settled further and further west, I think that it was almost concentrated because you had these populations that didn't have a lot of contact with the outside world, and certainly not with metropolitan areas. And just like accents, there aren't as many accents as we used to have.
Yeah.
There were these musical traditions that sort of formed in these communities, and then when they were exposed to a wider audience, people said, well, that's really interesting, or that's really strange, or that's really alien, and some people liked it, and some people said, that's just too weird for me.
And even to today, where there is the northern and then there's the southern, they kind of differentiate a little bit. They're not the same.
Certainly, there's always that sort of, that's this kind of music or that kind of music. There's always that differentiation. That's it's interesting how sometimes we define ourselves more on what we're not than what we are.
Jumping forward, what do you think about it today? Do you think it still kind of takes back to the roots of old Appalachian music when it first came over here, the Irish fiddle music, or do you think it's changed exponentially?
I'd say that there's a danger about stagnation. A lot of people look back at it as almost sacred, that you can't change it, and any sort of infusion of other influences into either bluegrass or old time, adding instrumentation, that's a violation of all that's sacred. Once you establish this musical tradition, not willing to change it. And that's what you run into a lot, and what I've seen, and having people mutter under their breath, that's not the way they did it back then, and you can't change that. That's not right for you to change it. So that's the danger I see, and honestly, that's why I think there's a real problem where you've seen these musical heritage groups have less and less attendance, fewer and fewer members, because the people who are these members are, I'm sorry to say, literally dying off, and there's nothing bringing the new people. There's nothing new happening there. It's the same thing they've been hearing all their lives. Yeah. That's the danger.
Definitely. And at the same time, too, there's the digital age where there's, guitars using, effects pedals, and there's all these different, things. There's electronic music being made on laptops. What do you think the future is for this? Do you think it's kind of going to destroy this whole style of just all acoustic, raw playing?
I'm not sure. I definitely think there's a place for acoustic, what I would call just homegrown music.
Yeah.
There's a place for that. I don't know if you're ever going to see any sort of electronica bluegrass fusion. Now, having said that, if you can think it, you can do it. And I'm sure that somebody out there is doing just that.
Or at least experimenting with it, definitely. With this genre of music, how do you compare it to other genres as well?
That's an interesting question. Honestly, I love Appalachian music. It is one of my favorite genres of music. I don't know if that answers your question as where I place it. I would definitely listen to Appalachian music.
So, I mean, it's still up there with all these other musical genres too, you know, but it's kind of a past that you can't forget because you'll lose something so important.
Well, and what's very lucky is that we do have electronic recording.
Yeah.
And that these songs and styles of playing have been captured and immortalized.
Yeah.
But who knows how many other musical traditions or styles of playing have come and gone and will never be seen because
or heard ever again just because of the recordings.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, because people are going back to using tape, analog recording too as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, recording these bands and, you know, even just, not just live shows, but, you know, also these albums that keep coming out and stuff, you know, with your band as well too, where you kind of keep the sound alive, you know, where you revive this old sound that you didn't hear that much, that wasn't recorded, but now you get to hear it all the time too, instead of it being just passed down. You just have this physical copy that you can duplicate.
And that's the word, is duplicate.
Yeah.
Again, there's a danger there. Bluegrass music being cast in iron, immutable, that you can't change it. And that's, again, with recording, there is a danger there too, that once you set it down, this is the way it must be played, no other way.
Completely agree with you on that one as well. Thank you, Geoff White, for coming on and joining me with In Tune.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you everyone else for listening to In Tune Podcast. I will see you soon.